everyone, and welcome to Open Studio Night. Happy New Year! We are presenting today some of our team members for this live demonstration. And we hope that you guys are going to hang out with us and watch. So SiNaCa Studios is a nonprofit organization. We're here to educate you guys about glass making. So as part of that pursuit, we present these open studio night demonstrations to the public once every month on the second Friday of every month. So those of you who are already familiar with our studio, you already know this, and you've probably come watched us in person, as well as maybe joined us online. Those of you online tonight, do remember that we have a chat feature in this demonstration as part of these demonstrations that is being monitored. So if you want to jump on and chat with us online or ask us questions while we're demonstrating tonight, feel free to do that. So tonight we're featuring our studio hot shop team. There's Tatara, who is sitting at the bench and being assisted by Blake Bowles. Kevin McGee is going to jump in a little bit later, but each of them is going to work through a different form. So if you've never watched glassmaking before, feel free to stop by. It's just about 6 p.m. here, just a little after 6, and we're going to be demonstrating until around 9. So if you've never seen glass blowing in person, maybe you've watched it on TV, but never gotten a chance to see it in person, feel free to come by and check us out, especially if you live in the neighborhood. So SiNaCa Studios is located in Fort Worth on Magnolia Avenue. And we've been here for quite a while, actually. Several years. It's been how many years, Kevin, that SiNaCa's been here? We're into 12 years, huh? Wow, that is a long time. So I don't know, if you've not been here yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. We are located in a really cute old gas station, and the building's pretty hard to miss now that we've got it painted with a bunch of fun stuff. So we set up the bleachers outside for these demonstrations. So this is a kind of an open air event. Might be a nice time to come with the family, with the kids, totally family friendly. And of course, you can always join us online as well to watch our demonstrations and live online. So as we go through the demonstrations tonight, I'll walk you a little bit through the process, but let me start off by telling you guys a little bit about SiNaCa Studios. So I mentioned that we're a nonprofit. We're really here to educate you guys about glassmaking. The studio was started in 2007 by 5 artists. So they really were focused on bringing the glass community together to hold exhibitions, promoting glass as an artistic medium, and raising money toward founding a school. So they wanted to come together, opened a nonprofit facility for the community to experience glass making, which is like actually pretty inaccessible in most communities. So in May of 2010, the gas station was chosen to be the perfect location, and we began renovations. We completed the studios for glass blowing, kiln forming, and flame working, as well as cold working, and there was also a gallery space attached to the building in late December 2010. So in 7 short months, they opened the facility in 2011 on the 1st of January. So a big part of SiNaCa Studios is our classes. We offer tons of classes because one of our main goals is to educate the public about glass making. But as part of our mission, we also do these free demonstrations. You can come by on the second Friday of every month and watch us make glass in our studio. So you'll see Blake here gathering out of our furnace, which is kept at about 2100 degrees, pretty much all the time. He's gonna cool it down on the pipe cooler. So a lot of people ask us, like, do you guys ever get burned? And of course, every so often we do. But surprisingly, we don't get burned by the glass as often as you would think. It tends to be the metal that burns us. So you can see that when the glass comes out of the furnace, it is bright white, white hot. Of course, on the camera, it's gonna look a lot brighter than in person. But at this temperature, the glass is kind of moving like very, very liquidy, sort of like honey. You can see that Blake's hand is constantly turning. And he's guiding it into something that looks sort of like a Q-tip shape. Adding a little bit of air into the pipe, and where you should see a little bubble pop through there. There it is. So this steel pipe that Blake is using is hollow. It's called a blowpipe, and it has a channel which you can blow through to inflate the glass. You'll see that he's like sort of shaping and inflating the glass. Now, a lot of people also ask us about color. And color comes in different grades. You can see in this little tray here, we're using a powder. What color is that, Kevin?
Enamel white.
Enamel white.
R61.
So
#1 in your playbook and in your hearts.
this is going to be a wrap, Kevin?
Yes, this will be a foot wrap as well as a lip wrap.
Okay, cool. So a wrap is basically a thread of color that we're going to apply to the vessel. So Kevin's coating the glass. When glass is hot, it's going to be kind of sticky. So it's going to pick up all of the cold glass powder on its surface. And then he's got to go back into a reheating chamber to heat the glass, get everything to melt in. So as you can see, glassmaking is very much a team sport. Tatara is at the bench. T, what is this shape gonna be? What is the, you're working on a bowl. Okay. What colors are those?
Don't know.
You don't know?
Pretty colors?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's a chemical reaction that's happening, which means two of the metals in the color are reacting with each other. And you get
Yeah.
kind of this really nice lime, yellow, green. And so that's happening a little bit here. So the colors I thought it was are not the colors it is, which I'm not sure what colors. I thought it was going to be purples and blues and pink, like a lavender.
Yeah.
But it looks to be like there must have been something else in there having some fun.
Cool.
So we'll see.
Well, surprises
We'll see
are
when we
good,
open it up. Yeah.
right?
Surprises around here. All right, bud, how you doing?
Yeah, color. One of the coolest things actually about glass making is that glass is inherently connected to physics and chemistry. So these reactions that Tatara is talking about are color reactions between some of the things that are in the glass colors. So things like sulfur and copper might react with each other, and you get sometimes a brown, sometimes a gray, sometimes something else. Some color reactions are easy to predict, and some are totally a surprise. So Tatara was talking a little bit earlier about this being a surprise. We don't know what the color is going to look like on the interior, but we're going to find out. So Kevin is using a tool called a marver to shape the glass. He's got to get it into kind of a rounded spear-like shape. And I mentioned earlier this is a team sport. You can see that the three of them are working together on one piece. Tatara is sitting at the bench and it's called gaffer. So this is technically being gaffed by Tatara, which means it's her piece that she is making. She's got two people assisting her with different processes. So Blake's got this bubble shape that he's bringing over. Tatara is sticking it to the bottom of this bowl. And then with a little bit water, they're going to create a little bit of tension in the glass. Cold spot, so that it breaks off right where it's cold. So glass, like I was saying, has a lot to do with chemistry. It has a lot to do with physics as well. What you saw there was a little bit of tension in the material that is caused by a heat differential. Hot glass, cold water, it's going to want to break where it's cold. So glassmakers use these properties of glass to their advantage, as you can see. In general, if you don't want something to break, you're going to want to keep it nice and toasty within a workable range. So generally, we like to keep the glass somewhere over 1,000 degrees while we're working with it. Once it starts to drop into the 900 degree range, you're definitely becoming a little more risky. Certainly not below 900. So we got to keep working on maintaining heat, not getting things too hot so we lose shape, and not allowing things to get too cold. So Kevin and Blake are using the reheating chambers for different purposes. Blake is sort of maintaining temperature and heating up the glass just enough to allow Tatara to shape the glass up.
Alright. Let me soak it. Very nice and hot.
Okay.
And Kevin, on the other hand, is heating up the glass to a point where it's sort of more like a very, very nice and juicy taffy. So he's got to get a lot of heat built up into that glass material so that it'll move quite well on the piece that Tatara's working on. Ooh, you're good. So Tatara's got this little foot
Coming right behind.
kind of opened to a point.
Oh yeah.
And then you could see how kind of taffy-like that glass was as she was wrapping it on. So Kevin had a really nice, great heat on that, which allowed the material to move without a lot of without a lot of resistance.
There's some angry stuff. There's some hardcore country. There's some
It's a nice mix of
weird ska.
a little bit of everything.
Kevin's mix.
So this torch that Tatara is using on the foot is really for selective heating. We have an oxygen-fueled torch, which is really, really nice and hot, and it allows the glass to get hot in a very, very controlled and specific area. So that in comparison with this, what we call a fluffy torch, which is going to give you more of a generalized heat. Now together, Blake and Tatara are paddling and opening. You'll see that Tatara is using the jacks to slowly open this shape up. And Blake's got the paddle in his hands, which is just a wooden tool to keep the bottom of the foot flat. So one of the things that happens with glassmaking is the changing of the axis. Now, Tatara is actually working on a foot for this bowl. Most people, when they start watching glass blowing, they're sort of confused by how we switch up the axis of a piece. But generally, we will start by working on the bottom of a vessel before we open it into any sort of usable form. So Tatara is working on the foot of the vessel. That little clear part with the white band is going to end up being the foot of this bowl. So you'll notice that every so often Blake is going to also shield Tatara with those little paddles, and Tatara's got these yellow sleeves on her arms to protect her from the heat. That's about as much protection from the heat as glassmakers tend to use for the most part when they're working with this scale. So T is using the jacks to open up and control the shape of the foot, and Blake slowly paddling the bottom to keep it nice and flat. Hopefully if you've been watching this stream for a little bit, you've seen that the form has changed quite a bit. The next step for a vessel like this is going to be to punty it. So Blake is gathering a little bit of glass on the end of a solid rod this time. And what he's going to do is shape this up. Remember me talking about switching the axis of the piece? What we're going to do is we're basically going to turn this piece around. Blake is prepping what we call a punty, which is a little bit of glass at the right temperature, shaped kind of like a Q-tip shape again. And we're going to stick this nice hot bit of glass to the bottom of the vessel so that we can break it free from the original blowpipe that we used. Kevin, I'm on your right. So Tatara's going to stick that punty to the bottom of the vessel, kind of push it on there, make sure it's nice and stable. And then the next step is going to be to break it free. So if you saw the foot being broken, earlier. This is going to be kind of the same thing. So Tatara is going to create some tension in the glass by applying a little bit of water.
They're really, really nice. The tips are super pointy.
Now the water is being applied into a very specific area called the jack line, or the neckline of the piece. And that little valley, once cold water is applied, that little valley is where the glass is encouraged to break. So after a piece is transferred onto the punty, that's generally a very, very long heat. We're going to see Blake's kind of stay here at this point, kind of heating that area that we just cooled down for quite a while. Tatara is going to make sure everything's nice and centered. And hopefully at this point you can see how a vessel becomes usable. The part that was connected to the blowpipe is now open. And you can see that Kevin's heated up the glass nice and hot. It's become something like a taffy consistency.
Sorry.
So from here, because the vessel is now open, Tatara can address the top of the vessel form. So far, everything we've worked on has been the bottom of the form, and now we're ready to shape up the top. So that color wrap we added is a match for that color wrap that was on the foot. Same color, enamel white. And so this vessel should have a really nice symmetrical sort of a color pattern going on.
You on the face?
So you guys, it is a new year, and if you've been thinking of picking up a new hobby or trying something new, trying something that's on your bucket list, come by and check us out if you've never tried glassmaking. And the cool thing about glassmaking is there's so many different ways to work with glass. What we're featuring here today is our hot shop, which is a hot studio, working with the glass in its molten state. But we do also offer flame working, which is a little bit smaller scale. You're working with a torch, still with molten glass, but in a climate-controlled environment. And then, if you're heat averse and you don't want to play with fire, we do also offer a kiln forming studio where you can fuse up glass or cut and assemble and melt glass down in a kiln. And if you don't want to do that, maybe you're into recycled glass, we do also offer cold shop, where you can cut things down, glue things together. Maybe you've got a bunch of old wine bottles you want to recycle into a lamp or something. The cold shop is where that happens. So lots of different ways to play with glass. "2023 is definitely the year to try new things, isn't it?" So the team's gonna finish shaping this up. Tatara's gonna finish kind of shaping this up. Blake, as you can see, Blake is kind of started getting suited up in our loading gear. So he's got that metal coated shield on his face, and then the Kevlar gloves. We're gonna use these to grab the piece once we're done, once Tatara's done with it. So Tatara's taking the final heat. I think that she's flaring it out. So this is kind of a fun, exciting move. She's gonna get the top of the vessel nice and toasty. And then she's gonna turn quick. Kind of flare the top open. If you're not paying attention or you blink too fast, you might miss it. Very cool organic shape. Blake has heated up those gloves, is ready to catch it. With a little bit of a tap, Tatara breaks it free. And then it's just going to hit the bottom with a torch to smooth off that break. From here, the glass goes into an annealer where it will cool down slowly overnight. That box there is sitting at about 900 degrees. And so when the glass goes in, it'll sit again at about 900 degrees and then slowly cool down to room temperature. We don't want the glass to crack. And if it cools too fast, it will. So we got a controlled cool. We got to bring it down in a very controlled manner. So you're up next, right? Okay. So our team's kind of switching between them. Who's working next? All right. So Kevin's gonna work next. We're gonna give T a little bit of a chance to get a breather. Kevin, do you know what you're making?
Huh?
Do you know what you're making?
I think we'll go more vase shape.
Wait, a vase?
More vasey shape.
Or a vase?
They're all vases. They're all vases.
I thought a vase was more expensive.
I'm making a vase. I want the common man to understand what we do.
Gotcha. What colors are you gonna use?
Eel green.
Okay.
Indigo.
All right.
Iris gold, and a little duro.
Okay, cool.
So, if you want to start that duro wrap. Yeah.
All right. So I think that Kevin is mostly going to be using what we call color bar, which are similar. It's basically a big old rod of color. So you'll see Blake pick this up in a little bit from our color box. But I think that looks like it's going to be the shape of the vase we're going for back there. So as I mentioned earlier, color comes in different grades in terms of sizes. So this right here that we were using for Tatara's piece, that's powder. It's going to be the finest that you can get.
Just get it stuck to the pipe.
And then from there, we go up in sizes to different frit sizes, which are different sized grains of glass. And then people go up from there to color bar, which are basically rods of glass. And then from there, you can go even bigger. Stuff that is basically like big broken up chunks of cullet, what we call cullet, which is just big organic random shapes of glass. So Blake's got this little bit of glass. He's going to go to our color pickup bin. And you can see the color bar that I was talking about a little bit earlier. That box is sitting at about 1,000 degrees or so. And for the same reason that we put away that piece in the annealer, we generally have to bring color bar up to about 1,000 degrees before we can pick it up and manipulate it. So I don't know if you guys have ever pulled something in a Pyrex dish out of the oven and then set it on a cold counter and had it explode on you, or put a glass Pyrex dish into a hot oven and have it shatter. Glass is very, very temperamental when it comes to heat change. So we gotta make sure that we're treating it gently when it's changing temperatures. So Kevin is starting up the gather for his first piece. Rolling it to shape up the glass. And then you probably saw him pop that bubble through. He's basically making a little bit of a collar of clear. I'm anticipating that he's going to pick up color directly on this, and then we'll start shaping from there. So similar to how Blake picked up that color bar, Kevin's going to use a blowpipe because he is planning on blowing a vessel. So if you've been watching our live stream from the beginning, you saw Tatara used a blowpipe to start, blew a big old bubble to start the form, and then went from there in terms of shaping. We're going to see Kevin go through something that's similar. However, because Tatara worked on a bowl and Kevin's working on a vase, we're going to see the form look a little bit different when it's in bubble form. So Kevin's got to get that glass nice and sticky with some heat. And then he's going to stab up a little bit of color. This is that green color I think he was talking about earlier. And then he's going to gently heat that up to get everything nice and moving again.
And we'll stab the indigo to the very bottom of the green.
Oh, cool.
So it'll be like a fake column.
All right. So the next color, if you didn't hear that, Kevin is planning on stabbing up the indigo on the bottom of this chunk of color. And indigo is like a very dark, dark, dark blue, right? Ooh, that's gonna look so good. So getting the end a little bit toasty and nice and gooey. And then picking up that next color. So from here, the color application is mostly kind of done. I know that Kevin's planning on using that white color that Blake has got to do kind of a wrap of some sort. But we're gonna see Kevin melt all the color, blow a bubble, gather over it, and then I think then he's gonna go ahead and start shaping from there. So once all the color application is done, we'll see this start to take form. So Kevin's rolling up the color on the marver, which is basically a steel table. We're doing this for a couple of things. We can shape the glass up. We can also use this table to chill out the glass when we're blowing any sort of form. So it's a great tool in this studio. So this is going to take multiple heats because Kevin's got to work that heat into the interior of that bar. We have picked it up at about 1,000 degrees, but 1,000 degrees isn't really enough to really get the glass moving. So when Kevin picked it up, it really was fairly cold in terms of workable temperature, i.e. not workable at all. So we got to get it hot in order to get it moving again. And the core of the glass is always going to stay the coldest. So when Kevin's heating it up, we're seeing the outside heat up, but generally the interior is still kind of chilly. And so he's slowly heating, marvering to get the heat to move its way into the center of the glass. So Kevin, the wrap is going on before you...
We'll gather and
Okay,
then wrap.
got it.
So that'll give me a little bit of breathing room since the Duro's so stiff.
Gotcha.
So I hopefully get a little bit better shape
Yeah,
and not distort the color that's on the pipe as much.
gotcha. So Kevin's color application right now is going to end up giving us a really nice fade. We're going to gather and then apply this white color to the outside of that gather. So he mentioned that color that Blake is working with is really stiff. And so Kevin is hoping that the gather that happens in between this color and the color that Blake has is going to help with that a little bit. Kevin's blowing into the end of the blowpipe to trap a little bit of air and then pushing a bubble into that color. You see him do this in multiple moves. He's watching where the glass is expanding and then he's marvering the sides to chill it out so that it doesn't continue to expand in that area. So he's sort of forcing the air down toward the tip. Now you'll notice that glass making, although it's on the opposite spectrum of temperature, it is really similar to ceramics, where you gotta keep the material kind of movable and workable, right? So ceramicists use water for this, glassmakers use heat, but it's really similar. We run out of, when you're throwing ceramics or working with ceramics, clay, the material dries out as you're using it.
Great. Thank you.
And so you gotta add a little bit of water into
Awesome.
it
Thank you,
to
T.
keep it workable. For the glass makers, as you're working with the material, it's sort of cooling down, and so you gotta keep adding heat. In general, in this studio, for the most part, when you're blowing glass, hot is good, cold is bad. That's a general idea. Kevin, do you need another drink? Anything to drink?
Sorry?
Do you need more water or anything to drink? I saw you pick up that.
Cold, frosty Topo Chico would be fantastic.
All right.
Either
I'll go,
with or without lime.
I'll go grab you one. By the way, this is a great moment to mention that we are lucky enough to be sponsored by Topo Chico. So thank you, Topo Chico, for bringing us all the cool swag and all the drinks. They're actually one of one of our favorite things to drink around here. So we really do appreciate y'all dropping those off for us. So Kevin's gathering up from our 2100 degree furnace. Now the glass blowing furnace is the heart of almost every glass blowing studio. They keep the material in there at about 2100 degrees almost all the time. And when we melt the glass down, most studios have a pot of clear that they work with. Makes it easy to add color and then coat in clear, which is what we're seeing Kevin here do. So Kevin's using a wooden block to shape up the glass.
Do the wrap.
We're gonna see him shape it into that Q-tip form.
Blake should have it already ready.
And that Q-tip shape is a really nice shape to start with whenever you're blowing a form. So Kevin's gonna add a little bit of air. We'll see him shape with the newspaper a little bit. Now, if you haven't watched our demonstrations before, you're gonna be like, newspaper, what? Newspaper is actually one of the most awesome tools we use in here. So that is just wet newspaper. The really cool thing about newspaper is that it allows the glass to ride on a layer of steam. We keep it wet, and then it's kind of like the closest thing you can do to putting your hands on the glass directly. The nice thing about the newspaper is it stops you from getting burnt. So Blake is shaping up this wrap into a nice rounded spear-like form.
I like it terrifying hot.
And then
No question. No.
Kevin is gonna wrap that color around this bubble. Are you coming over here?
I think so.
Okay.
From behind? Sure. It doesn't matter to me. Probably stand inside the bench and make it work.
It's just a matter of getting there, because by the
Yeah.
time I get there, this
That's
wrap
true.
is going to be full.
Yeah.
So I'm just
We'll get a little flash.
planning my attack. You're going to flash? Okay.
Yeah.
So Kevin's got to kind of maintain and watch the temperature, paying attention to make sure that it doesn't drop below a certain point, but he also can't get it too hot. He doesn't want it to move on him too much when Blake is wrapping this glass on. Ooh. Now Kevin mentioned that this color that he's wrapping is really stiff. So Blake brought it really nice and hot.
Super neat.
Great heat.
On point.
It was a nice long time to be able to wrap that color around.
Right. You had to do it like that, and it had to be that hot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Heat, sir.
Nice job.
Excellent. I've got a few more little chunks of that if you want it for yours. I'll just have to dig it out of the water.
And so generally this next step after wrapping color like that is going to be to melt everything in real nice.
Get this cooked in.
So Kevin's going to get that cooked in, melt it in real nice, and then, are you taking another gather over that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
At least one small, maybe two small. Michael, what are you doing? Yes, that would be fantastic. I think Michael's purchasing color. Oh, yes, he is. Outstanding. Shot of tequila.
All right. So if you guys haven't had a chance to come try out glass making, come take a class with us. One of the main reasons we exist is to teach you guys about glass. So we offer tons of classes, and if you're curious about what we offer, we have a great website that you can go to, SiNaCaStudios.org, and right at the very top, you're going to see a classes tab. You can click on that and you'll see all of the different offerings. So we offer in-person classes, we offer things like this, which are our free demonstration nights. We have tons of different events too. So if you're, if you find yourself in the fall looking for a pumpkin, a glass pumpkin, or you want to come check out our glass pumpkin patch, that might be a nice time to come check us out. So Kevin's got all that color nice and melted in.
Delicious.
It is the best thing. Now he's using that wet newspaper to shape up that glass. Just by adding a little bit of air, you can see his hand is capping the pipe, he's holding his thumb over the hole. Trap a little bit of air in there. And I think this is going to be his primary focus for color application. So his next step is going to be letting this chill out, giving himself a chance to chill out, and then gathering a little bit of clear glass over it. We need a little more volume of material to blow anything larger. The glass blowers love to gather around the material and look at it. Inspect it. And so Kevin's just mentioned that he is going to be gathering a little bit of clear glass over the top. We're going to see him strip some of that glass off. So he's basically putting like a thin coat on top of this color. This is the best part. You get to see how hot and gooey the glass is at this temperature. So when it comes out of the furnace, it's super similar in consistency to honey. And then as it cools down, it goes through like a stiffening that happens. Ends up becoming sort of closer to taffy. And then once it loses heat, then it becomes similar to what you guys all know at home. Real hard, and once it loses all its heat, it becomes real cold too. Very brittle at room temperature. So Kevin's using that wooden block to shape up the glass. You'll see the shape pretty consistently in the studio, that Q-tip shape. It's a really nice starting point for most forms. It's going to give it a little bit of air. And then continuing with the wet newspaper, he's going to continue to shape it. So this is a delicate balance of shaping, cooling, heating, blowing. And you'll notice that as Kevin is working, or in general, as he's been working, he hasn't stopped turning that pipe once. You guys noticed as he came out of the furnace that the glass was super duper liquidy. And I mentioned earlier physics, right? Man, physics. The moment that Kevin stops turning, the glass is gonna kind of head down toward the floor, and gravity will take over. And so, in general, you're gonna see most glass blowers kind of turning pretty consistently when they're trying to make a symmetrical vessel. Let's get a closer look at this real fast. Super cool. is going to stretch out really nice. And you guys can see that there's, this color doesn't quite look blue. It doesn't look blue and green at all. It's kind of orangey. So most of the true color doesn't show up until either the very end or once it's back at room temperature. So we just gotta trust the process here.
Hourglass. Bigger foot, bigger lip, skinny waist.
So Kevin's gonna take another little gather on this. We're gonna see him take another strip gather. So if you missed this the first time, this is your opportunity to watch the glass drip into the strip bucket. All right. Pretty cool. So again, do remember that we're going to be demoing for another couple hours. We're only about an hour in, which is pretty awesome. So if you're local and you want to come hang out, come by and watch us work. Gotta hydrate.
Always hydrate.
So Kevin is going back to that same Q-tip shape we talked about earlier. Turning, turning, turning. And from here, he's gonna blow out and start shaping the vessel. Now we're going for something like an hourglass shape. He drew a little shape on the board there. And so from this bubble shape, he's got to slowly work toward that form. So if you guys haven't come and checked us out in person, don't forget that on the second Friday of every month, we do this kind of a demonstration. It's a nice opportunity to come just hang out on the bleachers with us. Maybe go grab some dinner down the street, and then come and watch some glass blowing demonstrations with us. Tend to pull out the bleachers for these events, and it's totally kid friendly too. So if you want to bring your kiddos, don't hesitate to. So Kevin's gonna start slowly elongating this bubble, chilling it out, blowing. He's gonna do this in stages, slowly working the bubble down toward the tip, cooling it, blowing it, cooling it, blowing it, heating it. We're gonna see him do this a few times. So not only can you come and take a class with us, you can come watch a demonstration with us. We have a gallery, so if making isn't your thing, but maybe you occasionally want to buy handmade and local items, our gallery is also pretty amazing. We represent about 50 different artists from all over the country. And there's a bunch of cool, unique work in the gallery. Or, I don't know, maybe you want to come learn something about glass, but you don't want to come take a class in person. We also do offer Take It home kits. So our Take It, Make It kits are a really cool option for if you have a group that doesn't want to come in for a class, but you all want to play with some glass at home. We do offer that as well. And you can find information about that on our website as well, or you can always call us up, ask about it, or stop in. Stop in and see what we offer. So Kevin's done a bunch of blowing and shaping at the marver. And you can see that he's now connected a blow hose. So he's going to be blowing a little more at the bench. And we use these blow hoses so that we can control the inflation while we're sitting at the bench. Now, traditionally you might see some people do this without a blow hose and with an assistant blowing. It's just different ways of doing the same thing. So Blake's holding that wooden paddle on Kevin's arm to shield him a little bit from the heat. As you can imagine, the more mass we have, the hotter this thing is gonna make us feel, right? So something that's real small is not gonna be as hot on your arm, but the larger that it gets and the thicker that it is, the more our arms or our skin's gonna start feeling that heat. So at this size, this is like kind of the heat protection you're gonna see for most glass makers. That little yellow sleeve that Kevin's got on his arm is protecting him a little bit from the heat. And then his assistant with the paddle is also helping protect him from the heat of the glass. Now, as you get larger, people start to need a lot more heat protection, so that changes. But for the size we're working right now, this is probably all we're gonna need. So as Kevin is shaping this vessel, you can see it slowly inflating. His cheeks are puffing out. And hopefully you are watching it slowly get bigger. So we do have a couple hours tonight if you're looking for something to do after dinner. Come on by, check us out, sit on the bleachers, talk with us, or you can also hassle us, that's okay too. But come watch what we're doing. The best view is always in person. So Kevin is using a tool called a jax. You'll see him slowly make a constriction in the glass. And this is eventually where we're gonna break the glass free from the blowpipe. So it's kind of an essential part of this. We'll see him do this over a few heats. It's gonna be turning, squeezing on those jacks to make that jack line. Now, if you've never blown glass before and you think this could be a cool hobby to pick up, we do offer a multi-week program, so you can learn how to do this like as a very long-term hobby. There have been a few people in the community that we've converted to the dark side. So if you think you might be interested in picking up a new hobby in the new year, or maybe for the next phase of your life, definitely come by and talk to us about what kind of class you might want to take. Now, if you've never done glass blowing before, we always recommend starting off with one of our shorter classes. But the moment you know. So once you're at that point and you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do, then we do offer training in the glass blowing studio through a survey class. And then once you're trained up, you can actually rent our facility. So you can come in and rent and work here, make whatever you want. So not only do we do that in the hot shop, but if you're interested in flame working, we do that as well in there. And kiln forming, as well as the cold shop. So Our studio is totally rentable if that's something you're interested in. The really, really cool thing about glass in general is the community that surrounds it. And that was really the spirit in which the studio was started. So if you're looking for a new group of people to, a new place to call home, or a new group of people to be your people, this might be the place you've been looking for. Oh, and by the way, you definitely don't have to be an artist to do this. One of the cool things about glassmaking is that it's really about color, putting the right colors together. And the skill set is not akin to anything most artists have done before. So anyone can really be a glassmaker. It has nothing to do with drawing skills, painting skills, or anything else. And I think that's what makes it so awesome. So hopefully you guys have noticed as Kevin's been working that the shape has slowly gone from round to more of a cylinder, and now he's slowly going to put a waist in it. The nice thing about that newspaper is he can kind of squeeze the glass together with his hand without worrying about getting burned. And there's not too many tools you can use in this way. So the newspaper is kind of nice because he can squeeze his hand into a form and the glass will conform to that. Beautiful. I don't know, did I mention that glass is stretchy? Get it hot, use gravity, and it will stretch for you. So Blake's using that paddle to put a little bottom on this form. This is going to be a vase, right? So we've got to make sure it sits on a table. So Blake has put a bottom in it. The next step of almost any vessel is going to be to transfer it. So if you've been sitting with us on this live feed for a while, you saw us do this with the last piece. Tatara is gathering a little bit of glass on the end of a punty rod, and she's going to shape that into a little Q-tip shape. So just a little hot bit of glass. We're going to stick that little bit of glass to the bottom of the vessel. And then we're going to remove the blowpipe. So Kevin at this point has just got to maintain temperature, making sure that things don't crack. Tatara is cooling down the glass a little bit. The thing about a punty is you don't want it to be too hot, and it should certainly not be too cold. So Kevin is rotating as they're sticking that punty on. Just going to make sure that it's nice and stable and that it's centered on the piece. With a little bit of water in that constriction, that jack line that we created earlier, we're going to create a little bit of tension in the piece so that it breaks free from the blowpipe. Now Tatara's first step as the assistant is going to be to heat that area that we broke off, reintroduce a little bit of heat. So it sounds like the next step, once Tatara brings this back, is going to be to tweeze and open a little bit. I'm not sure what the top of the vessel is going to look like, but I guess we'll find out together.
Yeah. We'll take a look at it, see if we do need to tweeze it. It may be okay if we just get the lip wrap ready.
So if you guys are just joining us on our live stream tonight, don't forget that you can put questions, comments in the chat, and we're always happy to answer things. So Tatara's picking up a little chunk of color from our color box. Which means that this very likely is going to be a lip wrap.
Gold topaz, I think.
All right. So gold topaz, which is kind of a really beautiful bronzy. It's an ambery color. Very, very, very gorgeous. So Kevin's shaping up that top. Tatara is gonna heat that color up. If you've been hanging out on our feed for a little while, you saw us do this with the previous piece. You saw us do this at the beginning of Kevin's piece. That color bar is sitting in that box at about 1,000 degrees. But 1,000 degrees is certainly not movable at all. And so Tatara's got to stay in here, heating up.
You just swap the whole thing. You raise it up.
Raise it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Did they fall last night, Cliff?
No, it's been low for a minute.
So T is heating and shaping that little chunk of glass. And then Tatara's gonna apply that gooey bit of color onto the top of the vessel.
No idea where I touched it. Did I get it near the lip?
Excellent. How's the yolk come out?
It's much more better. I'm not sure.
I don't know how much this mic is picking up from our studio audio, but Kevin did mention that he couldn't see where he was applying that lip wrap. But he did a great job. It hit the lip. That's all that matters. And it's actually pretty even, so. So the next step is going to be to kind of clean up that lip. You can see that Tatara is sort of paddling the lip, flatten it out at the top. Kevin is shaping the sides with that newspaper again.
You. I'm 5'7" on a good day. I can't stretch that far.
And then the next step is going to be to inflate the top of the vessel just a little bit. So Tatara has grabbed what we call a soffietta. Now, the vessel form has been switched around, which means that the opening of the vessel is not in a very convenient location for blowing into. So Tatara's using a tool that she can blow into while Kevin is shaping up that top section.
Beautiful. Little heat, flare it open.
Very nice. It's looking great. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you're not going to be able to see the true colors of this piece. We can see that white wrap, which is really dense in color, but we're not seeing any of that blue or the green that Kevin has put on this vessel form. Because of the radiant heat of the glass, most of the color really shows itself once the glass is cooled down to room temperature. If you watched a lot of glass making, you know this already. But it's always a kind of a nice, fun surprise. Unless, of course, you know exactly what colors you've put on there. And for most people who are watching demonstrations like this, once they see the piece afterward, it's always a nice surprise. Yeah, nice.
Couple of flashes. We'll reduce it. Send it home. Let me get that left over for security, please.
So Kevin has opened this into a really nice hourglass shape. Actually very, very similar to what he drew on the board earlier. You'll see Blake is suited up now. He's got some Kevlar gloves on, as well as a face shield to protect those eyebrows. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to put this piece in the annealer. So the annealer is a hot box. Basically sits at about 900 degrees. And then at the end of the night, we send it down slowly in a very controlled fashion. We send it down to room temperature in a very controlled fashion. So Blake is going to catch the piece. Kevin's going to torch the bottom to smooth things out on that break off. And then it's going to go into that annealer I talked about, so that it can slowly go down to room temperature. Nice. Nice job. Excellent. So we're going to take here a short little break just to let our team kind of reset. I think that Blake is blowing glass next, right?
Yeah.
So I'll take a short little few minutes to break, and then Blake's gonna start working right after that. So hang out with us here on this feed. We'll be back in a short 5 minutes.
nonprofit dedicated to education, dedicated to community, and we use glass art and the creative process to help people to heal and to become interested in the visual arts, to become interested in science. A lot of our programming is focused around STEM concepts, STEAM concepts really, to include the arts. And we are a public access studio here for everyone. SiNaCa Studios was founded in 2010. We started offering program in early 2011, and we have over 30,000 people come and participate. The brand really illustrates community and bringing together the primary elements in community. We offer glass blowing opportunities, we offer flame working classes and workshops, and we also offer kiln forming classes. We've done programming for domestic abuse survivors, we've done programming for homeless kids and people who are looking to heal. We've used our process to help people to express themselves. One of our probably more powerful stories is about a young woman named Alexis who came in, and she had never worked with glass, and we did a kiln forming project, and she and her brother and several other students cast their ideas into thick pieces of glass, and she made a heart that helped her to express the loss of her father. Had a pacemaker. It was a real interesting piece, and it ended up going at auction to someone who had also lost their father, and it was a really powerful moment for all of us. She was struggling to express herself, and we helped her to find her voice and to make something that she could not only see how it could help her tell her story, but also to connect in the community and help someone else kind of heal through glass art. As SiNaCa Studio presents to foundations and to donors and receives support, oftentimes the support is specific to a project where we're bringing in kids that are connected with those foundations or with those donors, and that money goes specifically to offering this opportunity to people who wouldn't have it otherwise. The organization has a sustainability model where we generate revenue in many ways, and that revenue is what covers our overhead and keeps the organization going. The support oftentimes is specific to a program, so that 100% of people's donations go towards offering programming to people. Our outreach and our culture of outreach really drives us to find funding outside of that so we can bring the community in and offer programs specifically to our community. Thank you. We are a determined group, and I pledge that any support offered will be used in endeavors in the spirit of community, with kindness and generosity, and with fearlessness.
super duper hot. We'll take it. Don't forget the very bottom. Don't
Is that
forget
is that Duro also?
No.
Just white, right? I was like, wow, the working time's amazing.
He apparently knows how to really work the Duro. That's the case. That would be impressive. That would be amazing. That's like we're teaching a class on Duro usage. First of all, have a super
So you guys, this is Blake Bowles, and is one of our amazing instructors in our hot shop. Hopefully you've been lucky enough to take a class with Blake, but if you haven't, definitely come check him out. Blake teaches classes, does a bunch of cool things for our fulfillment shifts, helps us keep this place running. So Blake, this is gonna be a bowl you said, right? Frit bowl.
Brick bowl,
With-
flat bowl type.
Okay. Very cool.
Probably a ball piece.
Oh, cool.
cookie foot.
Cookie foot.
Awesome. So, if you couldn't hear what Blake said, he's basically making something that's going to sit on a wall. And so there's going to be a foot on the bottom. Are you going to spin it out, that means? Or are you going to make it?
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll have to hang out and see.
I know, the tension.
I
Woo.
don't want to give away
The
everything.
mystery. So, Blake is going to use the marber to smush all this color down, but in turn, that's going to chill the glass out a little bit. So we're going to watch him marber, heat, and blow.
Wiggity wiggity wrap.
Color, I feel like color application is part of the longest thing, right? When it comes to glass making. It's really, if you love color, you will love glass. The nicest thing about color in this material is you're not just working with the color, but you're also working with light. And so different kinds of light affect color differently. If you're into interior design at all, you would totally love this material. So I'm going to pass the mic off to Clifton for a little while to chat with you guys a little bit about SiNaCa Studios and who we are. Thanks, Clifton.
Thank you, Gene. All right, everybody, I got the mic now. Here we go. So, my name is Clifton Crawford. I'm the executive director of SiNaCa Studios School of Glass here in Fort Worth, and I gotta, give so much credit to this team. I'm honored to be a part of such a talented and dedicated team. Gene on the gimbal, Blake's on the pipe now, and Kevin and Tatara. Lucas is taking pictures. Brandy's on the computer. Heidi's in the gallery. We're just a tight-knit group of people who love glass art and who love our community. SiNaCa Studios is dedicated to education. We do all kinds of wonderful programming for the public. You can come and participate in all three: glass blowing, flame working, and kiln forming. And as you can see here in the glass blowing studio, we like it hot. This is the hot shop. Blake has gathered some clear. Y'all saw him put a wrap of white glass on there, and now he's going back and forth to this blue color. There's some blue frits over there. You going over there again, Blake?
Yeah.
He's going over there another time. He's gonna touch that hot clear glass to the pile of colored blue pieces, and then take that back to the heat and melt them in. Glass blowing is fascinating. It's a bit infatuating. The furnace is where it all begins. We gather the clear glass out of the furnace. We apply colors in many, many ways. We're back and forth from the bench to the heat. It's really about understanding the temperature and understanding how the material will move at different temperatures, and then keeping things balanced, keeping things under control, and then having a clear vision, a clear plan of what you want to make. It's forgiving in a lot of ways, and it's unforgiving in some ways. It's pretty difficult. It just takes practice, just like anything. So flakes back and forth many times, gathering more frits and more little bits of color and melting them in. So like I said, SiNaCa Studios is about community. We do programming for the public in glass blowing, flame worked glass, and kiln formed glass. We are a public access facility, so you can take a curriculum, you can learn about it, and then you can come and rent the shop just like it was your own. We do open workshops, we do demonstrations events like tonight, where we invite the community to come and watch and ask questions. And then through the support of wonderful donors and great partners, we do outreach programming. So I want to recognize the Texas Commission on the Arts, the City of Fort Worth, the National Endowment for the Arts for their support of our programming. I want to recognize the Ann L. and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust, the R4 Foundation, the J.E.S. Edwards Foundation, and all those out there who donate to help us make this accessible in our community and to make our programming with people who wouldn't have the opportunity possible. If you have questions, if you're interested in what's happening right this moment, you can send us a message in the chat. We're manning the chat so we can answer a few questions. See if we can get any questions from the peanut gallery. Anybody got any questions? I'm really smart. I got a lot of answers.
What's he doing?
He's shaping and cooling and influencing and maintaining balance. He's doing a lot of things all at once. Thanks for coming, Shelly. Good to see you. Yeah, you'll have a great weekend. SiNaCa Studios is located just south of downtown Fort Worth. We're in the Innovation District. It's the hospital district. It's a really wonderful kind of community. It's very walkable. Magnolia Avenue has been our home for the last 12 years, and we've been thrilled to be a part of its growth. I think truly we are one of the kind of anchoring visual arts organizations of our community. And it's just been really fun to be a part of SiNaCa Studios and all of this community's growth over the last 12 years. So like I said, we do outreach programming in the community. We have great partners like One Safe Place, which is a family justice center. We do stuff with their Camp Hope group. These domestic abuse survivors go to camp every summer, and then throughout the year they get together for activities, and we love hosting them over here to get back together and to renew their friendships and to make things, right? And to get off of the computer and to just be in the moment and to work with this material. We work with Project Success, which is with the Fort Worth Police Department at the Presbyterian Night Shelter for the homeless community, and we bring homeless kids in to do similar camp workshops like those with One Safe Place. We do stuff with the Fort Worth ISD. We go into schools. We bring them here. We do all kinds of programming with veterans. We work with some great partners to help people to heal through making, and specifically glass making. And if that's interesting to you and you want to come give it a try, go to our website, SiNaCa.org or SiNaCaStudios.org. There's all kinds of classes there you can look at. And if you value what we do in the community, you can make a donation. Every dollar counts, and we would certainly appreciate any support that you have to offer. We're keeping the demos quick tonight. We're trying to do a 30-minute pieces, and so Blake's gonna make a bowl. He put that white wrap on and put some blue glass on. So once this bowl is opened up, it'll have a wild pattern of a white kind of swirling design backed with a blue background. So he's cooling and shaping and blowing through the pipe, so he can understand where it's hot and where it's not, and where it will move and where it won't. The table Blake's taking it to right now is called the Marver, M-A-R-V-E-R. Historically, they used stone tables back before they had big sheets of steel to roll the glass, to shape it, cool it. So as you can tell, as this continues, it becomes very team-oriented. It's all about collaboration in here. We can do a lot of things all by ourselves, but with more support, more complex we can become, and more potential we have to make things bigger. So Tatara's over there blowing through the hose while Blake cools it and shapes it.
Go ahead, blow. Harder.
So Blake's having a dialogue with T, asking her to blow and to stop and blow harder. And all the while he's cooling it and shaping it. And then when it stops moving or when it starts to cool down, you take it back to the heat. It's a dance with the fire. You got to keep it hot and work it a little bit. Keep it hot and influence it in some way. Keep it hot, shape it. It's hot stuff. That that reheating oven that Blake keeps going into to keep it hot is probably pushing 2,200 degrees, maybe as far as 2,300 degrees. It's not the smartest machine. There's really no thermometer in there. It's just we judge it based on its color. So we look at it glow, and with experience we can kind of tell how hot things are. So this bubble that Blake is blowing is still rather thick, and it certainly is really well connected to that pipe. Oftentimes we use the torches to isolate where it is moving and where it is hot enough to move. And ultimately, we've got to get it off the pipe, right? And then we are satisfied and we need it to break free of the pipe. We have to break it in a very controlled way. So Blake is going to heat up the area closest to the pipe and define a line that will break in a very predictable way when the time is right. So he's going to take that back to the heat.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Jack.
He's going to heat it up, and then he's going to use that long metal tool. It's tools that we use, been around a long time. This process has been around a long time. People have been doing exactly what Blake is doing at a really elite level for well over 500 years. Some of the most exquisite things ever made were made in the 1200s, 1300s, and so the tool he's using now we call the jacks. It's these two blades on a bit of a spring on one end, and so he's squeezing the blades together as he squeezes down on the bubble to define that line that separates what we're going to keep ultimately and what we have to leave on the pipe. We can't keep it all. We have to leave a little bit on the pipe. So Blake's defining that line, squeezing down, and then he wants a little air, so he's having Tatara blow. So now that line that he was touching and where he's touching it right this moment will ultimately be the lip of the bowl. It'll be the opening, the widest part of the bowl. So we define the bubble and extend the form ultimately so that we can then put a flat spot in it, some place where he can break it. It will sit on the table. As things get bigger, we have to open up that hole more and more, therefore enduring more and more heat that's pouring out of that oven. So Blake and Tatar are engaged in a pretty deliberate dialogue right now about blowing and all the future steps that it's going to take to complete this piece. There's a lot of collaboration, as I described. Has to be clear communication so everybody's on the same page and the goals that we're outlining can become real. So they're discussing the next few steps. Blake has defined the form, and he's gonna have Tatara gather some clear glass out of the furnace, and they're gonna apply it to the bottom. They're gonna squeeze this little blob of clear glass to the bottom and create a little puck, a little foot for this bowl to sit on. Working through it. Blake's asked Tatara to gather again out of the furnace, to shape it up a little bit and to define a line, and then she'll bring that over and drop it down onto the top of this. He'll hold his piece vertically and they'll drop that clear bit down onto the tip of the bubble that he has. She's over at the far bench preparing this little foot. And ultimately, they're going to bring what Tatara's got over and attach it right there. Interesting tools. We use a lot of cherry wood. We use paddles. We use newspaper. We fold newspaper up and use it as a bit of a flexible pad. Tweezers. shot at this. There we go. Squeezing that little clear bit down onto the bottom.
Push a little.
Good shot. Nice moves. So this is an interesting moment in the process. Oftentimes we make things and define just the bottom portion of the form, and that's what's happened so far. Blake has the bottom of a bowl defined, and the top of it is yet to come. So Tatara's gathered some clear glass out of the furnace, and she's going to cool it and shape it in such a way and present it to Blake. And then Blake will have a moment to evaluate it, and then he'll take it and attach it to the bottom of the bowl, that little foot that he just created. That's the bottom of the bowl. So T's going to shape it up. This is called the punty, P-U-N-T-Y. This is a kind of a point. Going to point it up a little bit, cool it off a little bit. She likes to shake it around. The atmosphere helps to cool it off. Initial touch just to kind of locate it, and then he's got a moment where he can adjust and push it around a little bit. So he'll push down on the pipe. Have Tatara push in to squeeze it on a little bit more. And it's in a pretty good spot, but that connection that they just created is very flexible still. It's still very hot, so if he breaks it free in this moment, it'll probably move around quite a bit. But he also doesn't want to wait too long, because if he breaks it free and that connection is stiff, it might break free of both the pipe and the punty. So by putting a little water and tapping it, creates a vibration and it breaks free of the pipe. That connection that the new connection to the bottom is still flexible enough where it doesn't want to move, doesn't want to break free.
A little heat on the front, and then you can bring it back.
So now he has the bottom defined, he's transferred it to a new pipe, and now he has access to the opening of this bowl. And it's probably, 2 inches in diameter, and he's going to ultimately get this hotter and make this opening bigger. So you can see where it was attached to the He's got a moment where he can make sure that the bottom's straight. He's going to heat just the top of this, open that hole bigger and bigger and bigger until he has a bowl. Always back to the heat. The depth that you go in to reheat things is critical, right? If you go in all the way for a long time, the whole thing gets hot. But if you look at this closely, you'll notice that only the top half is hot. The bottom is not glowing nearly the way that the top is. And so by only going in a certain depth, you can isolate the heat and get it to only move where you want it to move. So the bottom part of this bowl he's already defined when he was on the pipe. Now he's just going to heat the top. He's going to open that opening bigger and bigger. So you can see he's inside with the jacks, lifting outside, pushing and shaping. And then back to the heat. Gotta keep it hot. Hot glass moves. The end of the piece usually kind of happens quickly. He's going to open this bigger. They're in the bucket. Chops. See if we can. So we use a lot of metal tools. We use wooden tools. So Blake's asked parchofis. So the metal ones here are jacks. These two metal blades that are on this handle, ultimately connected by a spring. Before they had the metal, they used wooden ones. So here's these two cherry wood sticks that are in a similar way attached to a spring. So Blake's going to use chofs, the parchofis, the way he was using the jacks to open that opening bigger and bigger and bigger. The wood does not absorb the energy the same way that the metal does. So by using the parchofis, it doesn't cool it in the same way. So you're allowed a little bit more time. The diameter of the tool is different, so it influences it a little differently. And spin it.
Yeah. Not on this heat, on the next one, okay? Spinning is good.
So I think ultimately Blake was kind of planning to open this bowl with the parchofis into a really low kind of tatza form. But as you go through the process, you recognize where it's thin and thick, you adjust to give it the best possible outcome. And so I think he's going to switch gears and he's going to spin this open using centrifugal force to kind of flip that lip out and just kind of let it go. Go with the flow. And ultimately, when we love it, when it's complete, we have to break it free of the pipe. Kevin is ready with his mitts to catch it, and then he'll carry it over and put it into the oven on the other side of the studio. If we leave it just to sit out and cool off in the atmosphere, it will stress out. It will cool too fast, it will crack, and it will break apart. So we have to put everything we make into a cooling oven to break off nice and slow. Blake's gonna put a little drop of water right on the line where he wants it to break. He's gonna tap the pipe. Ding. It's got a little sharp spot, so we can take that sharp spot, torch it, melt that so it's nice and smooth, and then into the oven to cool off nice and slow. Nice job, Blake. Excellent demonstration. Always a crowd pleaser to spin out a bowl, to let it move around and kind of go with the flow. It's all about teamwork, people. It's all about community. It's all about working together. I think we're gonna do one more piece. Thank you guys all so much for coming. Yeah, I'd love to meet with you sometime soon. Yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, very good to see you again.
Likewise.
Have a great weekend. Nice job, Gene.
All right, I'll take it over while we are.
All right.
Are you gonna demo now?
I don't
What
think.
you're planning on making? If you're gonna make something.
I don't know if I'm gonna make something yet. Let me go and talk to a couple of people as they leave before they get too far away.
I don't know if Clifton is gonna make.
You have 1 hour.
Yep. All right, you guys, we're gonna take a little teeny tiny break while the team figures out what they're doing. I think we've got about an hour left, so we'll continue to live stream for about an hour, maybe a little bit over an hour, because it looks like we have an hour and 5 minutes. But we'll be back here shortly. Just hang out with us.
So is this more product placement or is it just that is live? I will turn the music down so it won't get tagged. Yeah, and have our video cut off.
That's enough to make a pile.
A pile?
A pile clear.
Make a goblet and make sure you got pipes up for your feet.
Are you gonna make a goblet? I might hang around for that. I always like seeing stuff I can't do.
I can make 6 broken goblets.
6 Roman goblets? Broken.
I'm with you.
I was like, Roman goblets?
I can make a bunch of broken goblets really well.
Get it basic.
I was super excited by it. I had to heat the crap out of the bottom to melt the break. It's been a big year. Not mine. Yours now. I think it's mine.
There's literally a sip in it.
And I bet there's more somewhere.
But I like that. So I think I'm gonna make kind of not something truly that you would drink out of. Maybe a stemmed bowl, you know, with a little something in the middle. Maybe like a little flower in the middle, something like that. So I'm gonna get some colors out and talk with the team, and I'll make a cup, and I'll put the cup in the oven and just let it park and kind of hang out, and then I'll make a little stem, a sculptural stem of some type, and we'll put a foot on it, and then I'll pick the cup back up and put it all together. I think that sounds good. Yeah.
All right, folks, so Clifton is planning on making a goblet.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a kind of a bowl, a little bowl for a top,
Okay.
and then a little sculptural stem with a blue.
Okay.
Blue and green.
All right. So, let me set this camera down in a spot that you guys can see for a second. So we're gonna let Clifton get set up here in a bit. He's gonna finish out our night out with this goblet that he's planning on making. So if you didn't catch that, it's kind of a low bowl form. He's gonna attach a sculptural stem and then place a foot on the form. So we'll get a glimpse at this. This will round out our evening. Don't forget, you guys, if you missed this demonstration, that you can join us every second Friday of the month. We do these open studio night demonstrations once a month. And really, it's a free event just so you guys can hang out with us, come and watch some live glass blowing demonstrations. So come hang out with us, especially if you've never been here before. This is one of the things we love to do. We love to hang out with you guys. We love to show you guys glass making and really just talk to you about glass. That's one of the best parts about this job. So come hang out with us. It's a low power. Come join us. We're about to do a demonstration, or finish the night off with demonstrations. Clifton's just getting set up for a goblet. He's going to make a goblet.
We'll probably be done by 8:45.
What kind of way you here tools?
How many more tools do you need?
I need more tools.
Okay. I'll get my tools out of the way. Now you got more space.
I was gonna use those great big ones too.
Oh, well then I'll put them right back. There's a white wrap up there. Yes. Oh wow. just like a plug. We don't have the iPhone USB-C. You made gold?
The overhead. She was using the overhead. I don't know what she's using now. All right. All right, you guys. So Clifton's taken over the demonstration tonight. He's working on a goblet form. So if you were here with us before I took a narrating break, you saw him talking about making something like a low bowl form with a sculptural stem and then a foot. So we're gonna work on that form right now. I think the color that he's using is blue. Is it a blue goblet? Okay, cool. Awesome. We're gonna work, so the bowl of the goblet's gonna be blue, as well as the foot. I guess we're gonna kind of find out as Clifton works on this. So you guys, since we're in our last hour of the demonstration, let me tell you a little bit more about SiNaCa Studios. If you've been with us the entire night, you do know that we are a nonprofit studio. We are basically here to educate you guys about glass making. So we do that through a lot of classes. Actually, I would say primarily classes. But we also do demonstrations like this one. This Open Studio Night is brought free to you once a month. So on the second Friday of every month, we do this public demonstration. It's a really nice way to get to know us. If you've never watched glass blowing in person and you live in Fort Worth or in one of the nearby areas, definitely come check us out. You can take a class with us. You can come and rent once you know how to use the facilities. So we do train people on renting the facility. So if you decide that you want to pick up a new hobby in 2023 and glassmaking is the one, you can always come learn with us and then rent with us as well. And if, you know, glassmaking isn't your thing, then you can certainly also come purchase glass from us. We have an awesome gallery on site, which represents about 50 different artists and all sorts of different work. So we represent flame working artists, cold working artists, all sorts of different processes, kiln forming. Glass is a pretty diverse field, so there's something kind of for everyone. So Clifton is working on a really nice optic twist. We saw him go into this optic mold that's down on the floor to get those ribs. And then he grabbed it and kind of twisted up those ribs. So generally the first part, what he's working on is most likely going to end up being the bowl of the cup. So this is a cup that has a stem and a foot on it. And what he's working on right now is going to be the cup of the form. So a lot of blown vessels will start off as a big old bubble of glass. We shape that bubble into whatever shape we want it to look like. And then we will flip it around and open it into a usable form. So Clifton's using the jacks right now to create a constriction in the glass. And his glass at this point is connected to what we call a blowpipe, which is used to blow air into the glass. So you can see that Clifton's hands are constantly turning as he's working. Because this is going to be a low form, Clifton's squatting the form up a little bit. And then that constriction that we see there is going to be used to break this glass free from the blowpipe. Do we need to move that marber for you? Yeah, watch that camera in front. Are you good? Okay.
Yes.
So Clifton's going to maintain a little bit of heat. Blake is bringing over a bit for an ovolio, which is a little bit of hot glass used between the bowl of the cup and the stem. Clifton's going to shape that little bit with the back of his jacks. And then Blake is going to bring over a second hot bit of glass to finish up that connection. This ends up looking like a cute little, tiny little baby hourglass shape. So Clifton's giving that little bit of glass some heat with the oxygen fueled torch. and then that bit gets flattened with the jacks and the paddle. So that ends up making a really nice connection between different parts. So the next part is gonna end up being some sort of stem.
We're gonna bunny this up and put it in the box.
Oh, got it, got it. So the next step is basically Blake is gonna make or has made a punty. Clifton's gonna attach that. We're gonna transfer it so that Clifton can open up the vessel. So occasionally things go wrong and glass sometimes will meet the floor. That was a good save.
Look at that, it's on center. Well done.
Nice save.
Right on the point.
So every so often things do go wrong in glassmaking. And that's actually a pretty common point at which things fall. So Clifton's managed to center this cup back up on the punty. Nice save, by the way. That was nice. Nicely done. And then the next step is opening up the vessel. So Clifton's got his jacks in there. Blake's got the paddle right on the lip of the vessel. And they're slowly going to open it up together. Glass blowing is about teamwork.
Do that one more a little bit.
don't like this.
You want straight? No, I'll use the band.
So you can see now that the piece has been transferred onto the punty, that there's an opening that we can use to open up that vessel. The blades of the jacks go right into that form. And then the glassmaker is able to leverage the vessel lip open. So a little bit of heat allows us to open up the vessel. So Clifton has got to balance the heat a little bit delicately because he's got those ridges in this glass. And so if he overheats the glass too much, he's going to lose a lot of those ridges. And so taking it gentle, heating slowly, and balancing that with how much he's opening up the vessel, how much he's cooling things down, is allowing him to keep those ridges. Ooh. So the bowl of this form is wide. All right. Nice. All right, so this piece is pretty done at this point. What we're going to do is we're going to put it into a box so that we're going to put this into a box so we can assemble the rest of the piece. A lot of glass making is done in parts like this. So Clifton is working on a vessel form, but sculpture is also very often done like this, where we put the piece away in a hot oven. That oven's sitting at about 1,000 degrees, and then the parts will be picked up and put together. So Clifton and Blake are kind of discussing what the plan of action is.
Sculptural bits. Contemplating blowing another blue bubble, and then adding some bits to the top of that bubble to create that kind of sculptural stem, and then ultimately punning up to that, opening the bubble into the foot, then punning back up to that foot, spinning it around, putting a bit on it, and then picking that up on top. And making kind of like this low, really wide, kind of bird bathy looking goblet.
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
that kind of like organic base.
Yeah.
I think that's what I should do.
So we're gonna punny back and forth, right?
What I do is bring on a
So Clifton and Blake are discussing kind of a plan of action for making this goblet happen. Clifton's got a bunch of colors set up. So he's using this frit that's right here to make this goblet. I think that one might have been this one might have been the one he just put away. Clifton's gathering out of our 2100 degree furnace, and the glass comes out at this temperature. It's pretty liquidy. It's very similar, got a very similar consistency to honey. And as you work with the glass, it gets more like taffy. What color is that, Clifton?
It's that iris blue. Still.
Iris blue.
Same as the cup.
Okay.
Or the dish. I guess we should call that a dish.
And this is going to be the foot?
Foot.
Okay.
So I'm going to blow the foot and then just have Blake bring me some bits to make a sculpted kind of a stem.
Got it. Right. So Clifton is twisting up the color a little bit to smush it around, get a little bit better coverage. And then this is going to end up being the foot, is what it sounded like. So I anticipate that because the top was optic twisted, that this part's going to be twisted in the optic mold as well. Okay. Thank you. So Clifton's put a little bit of air into the blowpipe and is slowly inflating the glass. Now, if you guys have been on this live stream for a while, you saw us do this with the last few pieces. Everyone kind of worked on a blowpipe because we're all making hollow vessels, but with very different quantities of glass, right? So Clifton's working the thinnest and has worked with really the least amount of glass so far. But the process is super similar. So everyone's been working on a blowpipe. We're adding color, inflating the glass, and then shaping from there. So Clifton's gone into that optic mold. Remember, that's going to create all those ridges that we saw on the other part of the vessel. His next step after that is going to be to twist all of those ridges. So he's twisting up all of those lines. And then from there, he's going to continue to shape. So those of you who have never watched us work in this hot studio, you probably are not as aware of how we inflate things. You can see that Clifton's got that blow hose hanging from his mouth. Since the pandemic, a lot of us have become a little more dependent on it, but that blow hose allows him to inflate the glass as he's working. Sometimes you might have an assistant do this, blow into the end of the blowpipe as you're working, but a blow hose is also a very efficient way to do that. So Clifton is cooling the glass and then shaping the glass with the blades of the jacks.
Start with an folio. Okay. Like before. Yeah. And then I'll have you make that green bit. Okay.
So Blake is assisting Clifton and is going to bring him a nice hot bit. Clifton's going to flash the piece to make sure that the glass is not getting too cold. And then Blake's going to pick up and Blake is going to bring him a nice hot bit of glass. I'm going to stick it. Trail it off.
Like that torch snake.
So if you watched the first part of what we are doing with Clifton, you saw him do this on the top of the goblet as well. It's going to look very, very similar. He's making another little hourglass shape with two little bits of glass. So he's going to go in and kind of flatten this part down a little bit. And then he's going to add another bit of glass on top of that. So Blake's bringing over a nice hot bit of glass. I'm going to stick it, pull off. And then Clifton's going to shape this up into a little hourglass shape. All right. So these avolios, these tiny little hourglasses, make really beautiful connections in between parts. Clifton's working on a goblet, so the avolio provides a really nice transition between the foot, the stem, and the bowl of the goblet. It's a baby. So Blake is making a punty. They're going to put a punty on that little avolio, and then they're going to transfer it so that Clifton can open that up. A punty is a little hot bit of glass shaped kind of like a Q-tip shape. Its main purpose is basically to transfer the glass from the blowpipe to a different rod. That way the vessel can be opened up and actually made into something functional. The glass, while it's on the blowpipe, is still just a bubble. You wouldn't really be able to use it as is. And so this allows us to open up the bubble into a usable shape. So hopefully you guys can see on camera that now there's a hole. That's where the bubble was connected to the blowpipe. And Clifton's going to slowly heat and open that So Clifton's gonna go in with the jacks, slowly open that hole up, and Blake's gonna lightly paddle that lip to flatten the glass out. And then together as a team, they're slowly gonna open this out into a foot. So you guys don't forget, if you're interested in this art form, we do offer tons of classes in this studio. But if fire isn't your thing, we offer classes in other studios also. There's lots of different ways to play with glass. Glass blowing studio is just one of many, many different ways. If you are into stained glass or mosaics, you probably would like the kiln forming studio. And if you're into things like jewelry and beads, you'd probably like the flame working studio. And maybe you're into recycled glass, or recycling glass, or repurposing glass. The cold shop is really awesome for that. Glass is a super fascinating material, and there's tons and tons of different ways to work with it. So if you have any interest, feel free to look us up on our website, SiNaCastudios.org. And come take a class with us, or just come hang out.
Let's go ahead. Let's honey up to that. We'll flip it around and I'll have you bring me crazy.
All right. So Clifton now is at this point where we're gonna make a punty, and we're gonna transfer it again. So Blake has got a little tiny bit of glass on the end of a rod. And he's gonna shape that up into a little punty. And then Clifton is going to transfer that foot back onto a punty. So a little bit of back and forth here for this piece. Generally when cup makers make goblets, they tend to make parts and put it away in a garage, which is an oven to keep the parts warm. And we kind of are doing that for the top of this goblet, but Clifton is mostly kind of trying to work it on the punty and on pipes by transferring it back and forth. So if you guess that the next part that we're working on is a stem, I think you're going to be right. Clifton, what are you doing for the stem?
He's gonna bring me a knob, and I'm gonna grab it, sculpt it into a shape.
Okay.
A little bit.
So Blake is putting a little bit of color, it looks like, on that blob of glass. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of a contrasting color to the cup and the foot. And then we're going to stick it to the foot. And then Clifton is going to sculpt it a little bit. Do you know what color that is, Blake?
It's a transparent teal green.
Okay. So it's going to be green.
Silvery grayish green.
Got it. So the foot and the cup are going to be blue in color, and the stem is going to have a green tone to it. So Clifton is doing a little bit of adjusting. Blake has gone in and given the stem some ridges as well. So he's stamped it in that optic mold to add those ridges in.
Not much off the end. Okay, I'm gonna stick it on the bullet. Yeah, close to the end. Okay, now I see it. Sorry, I wasn't seeing it. That's okay.
And now Clifton's got that blob of glass on his foot. So from here he can sculpt it and change the shape. Into something else. All right. It's like a ribbon.
Fun when it's all together. Okay, maybe a bit with some pink. Yeah.
So Clifton's adjusting it a little bit. And then Blake is gathering a little bit of glass with some pink on it. We talked a little bit earlier in the feed about color, but I mentioned green, and at that point we didn't really have any frit out. But this is what frit looks like, kind of like crushed up pieces of color. So lots of different ways to apply color. In some studios, they have color in a pot, just like how we have a furnace full of glass, of clear glass. Some studios do have a furnace full of color. Sometimes several pots full of color. So Clifton and Blake are talking about where that bit is going to go.
Actually, you know what? We'll do one here, and then we'll do another one on the other side.
One of the things you'll notice is in glassmaking, a lot of people work very, very intimately with each other. It's kind of hard to make a piece on your own. So you'll see a lot of people working in pairs of 2 or 3, sometimes a lot more than that, depending on the complexity and the scale of the piece. But good communication is really important. So Blake's got that bit of glass kind of shaped up. And then Clifton's going to apply that pink color onto the stem. So Clifton looks like he's making something a little bit abstract, but maybe a little bit floral.
One more time. Where it's going to touch those two.
All right. Blake's bringing over that bit of glass again. Another pink bit.
Okay, good on the pink. Yeah.
And then I think Clifton's gonna pinch and shape that bit similar to the other ones. So these bits are, Clifton's gonna fine tune and sculpt them.
That was it.
And then
851. 51? Yeah. Okay, cool. We're gonna put a little clear bit right on the tip, and then we'll go straight over there and stick it.
so the next step is really to attach that bowl we made earlier, the cup of the goblet. I think we're gonna attach a little bit of glass, almost like a bit of glue, to this stem. And then immediately after, it sounds like we're gonna walk over and attach the cup to that little glue bit. All right. So Clifton's was doing a little bit of fine-tune adjustment. He's given Blake the signal for bringing over a hot bit. They're gonna put a tiny little bit of hot glass on the end there.
Okay. Going over there. You good on that? Yeah, sure.
Clifton's gonna heat up this little bit of glass. They're gonna stick it. And go on over to the reheating chamber to flash it.
That was right.
All right, success. So the goblet form is kind of assembled together. Clifton's gonna do some fine-tune adjustments if needed. And then we generally try to equalize the temperature of everything and then put it into the annealer. All right.
Shouldn't have touched it with the paddle. Your foot just cracked. Got a little too cold right there.
Ah, shucks. All right.
See if I
I didn't notice that on the video, but and I don't know if you guys can really see that, but the foot did get a little crack in it. Got a little bit too cold. Has a tiny little crack in it. It's kind of a bummer. All right, still a really cool piece. We're gonna put that into the annealer. Nice job. And then in the annealer, the glass cools down very, very slowly. So that box sits at about 900 degrees and then slowly comes down to room temperature overnight. So at the end of the night, we run the annealer and it comes down to room temperature.
So I cooled the foot a little bit. When I was trying to straighten it, the foot had a little bit of a wobble, and the top had a little bit of a wobble, and so I straightened the bottom and I straightened the top. And then right when I was torching it, I felt it. I felt it in my hand. I could felt the pipe wiggle.
So you guys, I'm gonna give Clifton the mic to sign us off tonight. Thanks for joining us for the first open studio night of 2023. It was really awesome to hang out with you guys online. Don't forget, we do this every month. So if you're not doing anything on the second Friday next month, come on and hang out with us. We'd love to see y'all in person. So hang out for a couple minutes and I'll let Clifton sign us off. Clifton?
Thank you all for tuning in to our, what is it, January 2023, our first open studios of the new year. I want to recognize the City of Fort Worth, Arts Fort Worth, the Texas Commission on the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts for their support, the Ann L. and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust, the R4 Foundation, J.E.S. Edwards Foundation, and all those out there who support us, and our sponsors. We have a wonderful community. We have some wonderful support. Topo Chico is on board at SiNaCa Studios. We're all sporting Topo Chico stuff, and we've been staying hydrated with some bubbly water. So thank you so much to Topo Chico, and everybody out there, go get you some Topo Chico. It's good stuff. I want to thank the Magnolia Wine Bar for donating wine. We really appreciate their support. If you guys are ever in the neighborhood and you want the best glass of wine in Fort Worth, go to Magnolia Wine Bar. They'll hook you up. And the team, right? I want to thank Lucas on the camera, Gene behind the gimbal, Blake and Tatara and Kevin here in the hot shop, and Brandy and Gene and Imran and Heidi. Imran, Heidi, everybody for all that they do to help make this possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back with you next month in February for another installment of our monthly Open Studios night. And come take a class. We do all kinds of stuff, wonderful workshops. So if you want to come give it a try, come make a goblet. Help me out. I messed that one up or broke it. Give me a little tip so I can keep things straight and keep things hot. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.